So even though my channel is largely focused on phones and apps and everything else in between, I'm a filmmaker nerd at heart. And so I'm always on the lookout for gear that will help to not only improve the production value of my videos, but also help to improve the efficiency of my workflow. So enter the SliderMini 2. This is a tiny little motorized slider from the team at Smartta. And full disclosure, they did send this slider to me quite a number of months ago now to test and use in my workflow, but they aren't paying for this video, nor do they get to see it before it goes live. But this video is a very brief look at the SliderMini 2 from the perspective of a technology YouTuber. Now, I've owned a fairly budget-oriented motorized slider since about the start of 2017. It's fairly basic in its operation, no app control or anything like that, and I probably wouldn't recommend it too highly to anyone, but I have managed to use it in a number of videos on my channel. But it's definitely quite clunky and it can be a real pain to set up and get smooth shots out of, particularly because my camera rig is so hefty. Now, that's not this camera rig, it's the one that's filming me right now. Now, I've also found that I will always have to use post-stabilization to smooth out the shots captured using this slider because there's always a little bit of jerkiness in the shots in one part or another. So I was really curious as to how this tiny little SliderMini 2 would perform. And I've got to say, for what it does, it's really impressive. Now, if you've got a light camera setup like this one, then the beauty of having such a small slider like this is that it can just mount onto one tripod. And that means it can really seamlessly fit into just about any workflow because it's so small that you could just leave it sitting on top of that tripod pretty much indefinitely. But for a heavier rig like mine, unfortunately, that one mounting option in the middle at the bottom of this slider actually means I can't use it with a tripod, and you won't be able to either unless you're happy with some Y-axis movement in your final shots. That's because all of the weight is only supported in the middle. So if you've got quite a heavy rig like mine, then the slider will actually lean depending on which side your camera is on. Now, as I said, I'm all about a productive workflow, and so I don't want to have to de-rig my camera setup every time I want a slider shot. So my solution was just to always use the SliderMini 2 on top of a table, and then it works beautifully. And because it's so small, it will fit on pretty much any table, including bedside tables, which I've actually used on more than one occasion. So then, because of its ease of use, I actually have found myself being able to use the SliderMini 2 a number of times over the past couple of months, which you're seeing on screen as we speak. And in fact, most of these shots do not have post-stabilization added after the fact. And that's what I love about this slider, is that most of the shots that you capture with it are silky smooth right out of the camera. So I actually find the SliderMini 2 to be a great companion to my larger motorized slider. And that's because there are often times that slider just cannot get a smooth shot even with post-stabilization added after the fact, because I'm shooting perhaps with a tighter lens like a 50mm or an 85mm lens. So in those scenarios, this slider will be able to capture a smooth result when called upon, which is great. So why do I even use the other slider at all? Well, for one, as the name indicates, this is a really small slider, which means your runs aren't going to be that long. If you are someone who needs really long slider shots, this might not be the solution for you. But the second and perhaps even more important reason why I don't exclusively use just the SliderMini 2 is that it doesn't offer parallax movement, which the other slider does. So parallax movement is when the camera arcs around your subject at the same time as that sliding movement. And I love the look of these shots. And again, it's why I don't just switch to using the SliderMini 2 exclusively. Even if it was an added extra that you could buy on their website, like a small motorized head, even if it was an add-on that you had to pay extra money for, that would still be perfect in my mind. But unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, they don't have such an accessory. And so that's why this, I think, works perfectly as a companion slider rather than a do-it-all slider. But again, it's the ease of use that makes this slider so good, in my opinion. They do actually have a companion app available, and you'd probably want to use this if you're someone who's shooting time lapses. But for me, I've actually never needed to use the app. I just use the physical button on the side. There are different press combos that will indicate which way you want the slider to move. And to be honest, that's what I love about it. It can fit relatively seamlessly into my workflow without getting in the way. If you want to check out the slider, then I'll leave a link down in the description to where you can do so. They also have some other accessories that go with the slider, like a ball head, or what I think is almost a must-have accessory, their Z or Z flex tilt head. But aside from that, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you later.